Welcome, welcome, welcome. We thank you for joining Rahab's Daughters, and we thank you for coming in for such a time as this. We're thanking you that you have come and you make a difference. The difference is that not only are you being aware of some things that you may not be aware of, but that you can make a difference after knowing the things that you didn't know. We are so thankful this morning that Rahab's Daughters has come together to talk about not only Super Bowl, but to talk about something that is an invisible conversation that is not always talked about. It's called human trafficking. Human trafficking is something that is taking place worldwide. Many do not know that it is right in their backyard and even in their house. So today we are glad that we have with us Sharmila Wakamajimmer. And yes, I did tongue twist her last name. We call her Sam so that we don't have a tongue twisting experience. She is the founder of Rahab's Daughters, but she is also a survivor of human trafficking. And how she looks today can show you that if we all come together, that we can eradicate this thing that is called human trafficking. We can eradicate people that are being forced, fraud, and coerced into things that they don't want to do. So today, as we just sit and just do a little talking, as I would always say, this is just a little kitchen table talk where you can get your coffee, you can get your tea, even if you drink a glass of wine, get your wine, but it will be an informative time for you so that you can go out and make a difference. Everyone on this planet has a purpose, and everyone on this planet can make a difference. The question is, will your difference be part of the problem, or will your difference be part of the solution? We have with us today Rahab's Daughters board members, which is a phenomenal board. They are on the ground, they are active, they are doing all that they can do to make a difference in this world. We have our board chairwoman, Kendra, and we thank God for her. We have board member Kenneth, and we have board member Jim with us on this morning. Today is a day that we ask you, what is it that you know about Super Bowl? And do you know the behind the scenes of a Super Bowl experience? But before we get into that, we would just like to engage in a conversation with our panel today on why they chose Rahab's Daughters. And I'd like to start, first of all, with being able for you to hear from Sam, the founder, who made all of this happen. And then after Sam, we're just going to do it so that we can have an even flow. Kendra, who is the chair, the president of the board, and then Kenneth, and then Jim. I turn it over to you, Sam.
Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us as we talk about human trafficking at major sporting events and what that looks like. Kendra and I are sitting in the UK right now, running the Ops and Data Center for Super Bowl and the Milan 2026 Winter Olympics. And for many of you who do know my story, you know that I was trafficked at Super Bowl multiple times while I was a victim, both sex and labor trafficked. And so it's very personal to me. And one of the reasons that this is our 11th year working the Super Bowl for anti-trafficking. And Rahab's Daughters came about because we wanted to have survival-led voices of people who had been through different circumstances and were able to bring that into the work that they did and were passionate about it. So when we started Rahab's Daughters 12 years ago, that was one of our driving forces, but we also knew that we wanted to make an impact at major sporting events. So that's sort of where we're at, and we've been busily working the data and trying to work on the predictive analytics of things and making sure that those phone lines get answered.
Yay.
Over to you.
Yeah. So hi, Kendra Flugelman. I found out about Rahab's Daughters. Sam and I actually worked together for quite a long time and became friends. And she I learned about obviously Rahab's Daughters from her, as she was starting it up. And I started to volunteer doing different things. And then here the past 7, 8 years have been on the board, and serving as the chairwoman of the board currently. But just when I learned about Rahab's Daughters, I felt really drawn to help, giving those who cannot a voice, helping them out of situations that they don't want to be in, that they're forced into. And so I just thought that was, definitely a calling for me. So, as Sam said, we're here now working the Super Bowl event, running the call center operations, which is always a interesting time.
Always an interesting time. But also, quite like rewarding, right? We've already had 3 women that we've been able to help this week already. So it's great to see them placed into permanent, safe housing, and working with our partner programs to make sure that they get the right fit for what their long-term needs are. So, it has its ups and downs, right?
As we're screaming at our technology, and then we say, hey, remember, we have 3 rescues yesterday.
We had to have that discussion first thing this morning. So remember, guys, it's okay, we still got something done. But over to you guys on the ground in San Francisco. Ken?
So for me, one of the things that in my life, I never want to ask people to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. And we ask a lot from our volunteers. We ask a lot from people who have a heart for this work. And this work it's not easy. And I feel like I'm just scratching the surface of what I understand about the survivors, about the work on the ground, about the amount of work that has to go on in the background and the technology involved. And so a few years ago, when Kendra and Sam approached me to help be involved, I had known about Rahab Daughters for a number of years, and throughout my life, I've tried to volunteer and to work for different organizations that have served underprivileged and people without a voice. And if I can have a voice to help them, if I can have a voice and use whatever skills, whatever I have to bring them joy, to bring them that's my kitty.
We love the cat.
Also wants
The
to be
cat's
involved.
great.
But yeah, just anything that I can do to help, whether it be a little. I know that a little can mean a lot, as long as you're willing to say yes and to give. So we are here on the ground in San Francisco. It's going to be a very busy weekend, and this is my first time here. I'm super excited, a little nervous, but I'm in good hands with great leadership, great people who have done this before that I can follow their great lead.
Awesome. But you're a San Francisco native, right, Ken?
I was
Or
born and
California
raised
native, at least.
born and raised just 5 minutes from San Francisco Airport, and where my parents still reside. And currently, the last few years, I've been actually in San Francisco.
Fantastic. All right.
Awesome. Jim?
Oh, wow. Um, yeah, I first learned of Rahab's Daughters when I was working with Kendra and Sam and Ken. Um, I had just come back from a deployment. I was in the military for 30 years, and my last deployment, I came back, and I think one time Sam had asked me about some experience I had while I was overseas, and I told her about these slave trains that I had seen and how shocking it was that slavery still existed. And she mentioned that, well, slavery and human trafficking, and human trafficking is happening now, and it's happening where you live. And I I couldn't actually wrap my head around that. I couldn't believe it that in today, when we have all this law enforcement and everything else, that there would be human trafficking where I live. But she showed me an active map of the United States of where trafficking is happening. and it looked like the United States had a measles. I had the measles. So 30 years before, I raised my hand to volunteer to help the country. And I was looking for something that I could do to help people. So I started volunteering, and I've been to multiple Super Bowls. So it's been a rewarding experience.
Thank God for um, you and serving our country and making it where it's possible that we can even have a conversation like we're having now, because we know in many areas of the world, people do not have the freedom to speak, to share their ideas, and to talk about things such as this. We're glad that you all are the ones that are taking the lead for the Super Bowl in the Bay Area this year and making a difference and helping those volunteers that said yes, that possibly this is their first time and that it is an eye opener for them. And we know that when we do talk about human trafficking, most people just look at it as being kidnapping. They don't look at the reality of it, that it is, no one's immune from it. It is in every area of our life. And so, right now, what is something, just briefly, you don't have to go into a lot of detail, that you've experienced during this leading up to this Super Bowl? And as for you, Jim, being a part of some former Super Bowls, what were some things that were impactful for you that made you say, this is something I know that I need to do? This is just not something that I'm doing to pat myself on the back, but I see the need, and I see that though I may no longer be in the military where I was there armed and to protect, that I can use my military skills now in my civilian life to add and protect.
So who do you want to go first?
You.
Doesn't matter.
Okay. All right. So I've been to multiple Super Bowls, and in the past 5 years, I haven't seen the Super Bowl, so I've been busy working it. Um, 2 years ago in Vegas, I guess, was one of the biggest impacts that I had, where I didn't know that there is a bunch of tunnels underneath Vegas, and there's a society living down there that has governors and areas of you know, but they live in these storm drains, and they, some people call them mole people, and but there's a lot of human trafficking that goes on down there. Um, but the biggest thing that year was we had gone to a place we knew there was trafficking happening, and there was a man and two girls. Um, the one girl, you could look at her and you could tell she was accustomed to the trade, accustomed to this life, and she was working. And the man was watching over them from a distance, so obviously they're trafficker. And then there was this other girl. She was looked like she was fresh off the bus and had just been picked up, but she was sitting on the ground, and the look on her face, there wasn't a smile. It was the look of sheer hopelessness, and like she had given up, because, and you know, so she had given up, hopeless, and she was trapped and had no way out, and couldn't help her. We went and talked to her, and she didn't ask for help. So we couldn't just grab her and run with her, because then that's kidnapping. Much as I would have loved to, but
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
couldn't help her. And it was, I know we've helped quite a few women and girls, but it's the ones I've seen but couldn't help that actually stick with me.
Mm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I know this is your first time out. Um, what's been impactful for you just in this short period of time?
To me, it's been, I think, education and knowledge is is everything. The more you learn and being involved in the lead up to this weekend, working with Sam, working with just different people who are part of the cause, learning the layers that it takes to work with survivors, to find survivors. And even yesterday, talking to Jim of, this girl could be a victim. She could just be coming out of the airport to visit her grandparents. You don't know. They come in all shapes, all sizes, all ages, all face types, and learning that is one thing. Being part of it is another thing. And I'm sure when you interview me in three days, I'll be saying different things, because it, it's one thing to move from the head to the heart and then put into action. And I think that's where all of us need to move towards, as a society, is we need to gain understanding. We need to have wisdom. We need to have faith. Not knowing who's a survivor and who's a normal person. Like, you just have to have faith. Um, and then it needs to move to the heart, that moves us towards wanting to be part of the solution in any way we can, whether it's donating our time, donating our resources, donating our money. Um, that's that's what I've been looking forward to, and that's kind of what's been tugging at me, leading up to this event.
Well, thank you for sharing. We're looking forward to um, hearing the successes as well as the challenges that you will be facing during this weekend. Miss Kendra, what's been impactful for you?
Uh, so, I think overall, just, one of the things that Ken mentioned was education. Like, people don't know the level of trafficking around them, right? They don't know it's right there in front of their face. It's all hidden. You don't, like Ken said, all shapes, sizes, everything. You don't realize it's there until you're aware, until you can understand that it exists and you're looking for it. And so I think that's one of the things that I feel is so important, is just having that awareness. But I think, what's been most impactful for me over the years of doing Super Bowl, from the side of the phone, is talking with the survivors, hearing them scared and ask for help, and they're in fear that their trafficker is going to walk back through the door any minute, and they're going to be caught talking to us. And and if I go with you, what if they find me? What if, it's just, there's so much fear that they're dealing with in the moment, while they're trying to get out, while they're trying to get help, that it's just heartbreaking, you know. So I think that's, and that's kind of the trend of who we speak with, right? And how
also
they
like
feel.
the data. And I mean, we were talking about this morning, right? Like, just the looking at the data and trying to make sense of
Why
it
it's
and why it's there and what,
like
you
what
know,
is happening.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I think over the years, traffickers are getting smarter, is what we have
So
decided.
things are getting harder.
Right? So, and the way that we're using data and AI, they're like finding ways to counter that, right? So every year we've got new challenges on how do we overcome the fact that we all got smarter, and that we don't, necessarily always have the resources that we like to throw at some of this stuff. But it's, I think, a real learning experience every year, because no two Super Bowls, and I think both Kendra and Jim will attest to this, no two Super Bowls ever look the same. No two sporting events ever look the same, even if you've been to them 5 times before, because every year there's new stuff, right? And we did Super Bowl San Francisco 11 years ago now. This will be our 11th Super Bowl. So it was one of the first ones. And back then, we scraped ads by hand. We did spreadsheets and linear regression analysis by hand, guys, right? With our Excel spreadsheets and our freaking and we would literally sit by hand and type it all into the spreadsheet and then try to analyze it. And we were able to, analyze maybe a couple thousand pieces of information, because our human brain was only capable of getting to that, right? And if we got a couple thousand available things to analyze, we thought we'd had a remarkable year. And now it's more like 10 or 20,000 minimum things that we're working with to analyze and be able to do predictive analytics around and be able to pinpoint where things are likely to happen or going to happen. And we have so much more intelligence. And yet, even with that, it's like it has layers, right? Like there's positive layers and negative layers to the, extra information. But I think, it has changed, right? So the way that we can interact with survivors has changed because so much has gone online. And not that strips don't exist and we don't work the streets and that kind of thing. We do. And we know that 1 in 10 homeless people will be exploited for sexual labor trafficking. So we know that there are vulnerable populations that we need to be in physically, right? But the growth of AI-based, sort of sexualized material has grown over 28,000%, right? In this last year, 28,000% more child porn images, more images of sort of sexual encounters. And we've got to find inside of all of that where the trafficking is happening, right? So the thing is, people think only about sex trafficking. And in the last 11 years, what I have learned, thanks to the data, is how much labor trafficking we also have to deal with. And the number of times that Super Bowl has helped us break down a labor trafficking ring in a restaurant or a beauty salon or a construction company or construction site or in the hospitality industry. And I think that is probably the biggest lesson for us, right? Because we used to only think about sex trafficking. And we forgot that on the road to any large event, there are infrastructure things that have to be built. There are labor that's needed. So for the Super Bowl, at the end, whoever wins, we've got to have all the t-shirts and stuff that we can take home, right? The hats and the merchandise. So, how many people realize that it's actually printed double for both teams because they can't print it the second that it's done. And when you think about how much of that has to be moved through 3PL, right, or third-party logistics companies, and how much merchandising has to be created and where it's coming from and who's making it, it begs the question, what does that supply chain look like? And how does trafficking fit into it? And for me, I think over these last 11 years, that's been one of the biggest pieces, that we can't just focus to sex trafficking. We've got to start earlier. And we now focus on both and look at the different ads because, in Miami Super Bowl, which I want to say was 2020 or 21, somewhere around there, we had multiple young ladies who were brought under the guise of working for a gentleman's denim company, which he really did have. But once they arrived, he turned them out to be trafficked. And this, thankfully, one of the girls called the hotline, and the hotel that she was staying in was able to assist us in, keeping her safe and getting law enforcement and the trafficker to get arrested. But she started off thinking she was coming for a job, right? And this is a very common way in which trafficking starts for big sporting events. They think they're coming to work as a cheerleader, as a model, as
the cheerleader
construction. Yeah, the cheerleader in Arizona. Yeah. There's just so many of those stories over the years. But yeah, back to you, Terry.
It's just labor. Human trafficking is just, it's integrated in all forms of our life. And getting that to the realization to people that it is in every part of the life. This is the month of February, which is, quote, designated Black History Month. And human trafficking is now the slavery of the world. We're back in the 17, 16, 1800s. Really goes back to the Bible in the beginning. And there's nothing that's going on in the world that we cannot find in the Word of God. But to have more people in slavery today, a modern world, that we have pretty much everything at our fingertips that my ancestors, your ancestors did not have then, and looking at from the time I connected with you, where it was a $150 billion industry, to now that it's a $236 billion industry. How do we bring that down into layman terms as far as getting a general message out that folks won't feel that what you're talking about is over their heads? When you were talking about the data, the one thing I was going to ask you, what effect do you see AI having in the trafficking world? That's one question.
As it pertains to large sporting events, AI is allowing for distribution of much more information faster, but also the use of AI to create things that look like reality. So deep fakes, right? And but also hypersexualized images can be created in AI in seconds. So it can, increase the ability for those images to have much greater reach, but also much more images, right? So many more images can be created. The other side is that we've got, AI agents and chatbots and all sorts of things making it easier to get out and find both supply, as in people to groom into the industry, but also easier to get to the demand, right? So if you're somebody who wants to buy these sorts of services or wants to hire labor that's exploitative, you can do it much more anonymously online, thanks to the fact that, an AI bot could interview your people for you and your face never has to be seen. So defrauding people gets so much easier in the age of AI. And that is one of the downsides. There is a dark side to lots of things, right? And AI is definitely one of them. AI does amazing things. I'm a big proponent of AI. I love it. But also, we've got to talk about the dark side of it and why ethics of AI are so important as part of this discussion. And when it comes to, helping corporations think about how they're going to work with people, I think it's really important that they understand what the dark sides of things look like, particularly as we're leading up to stuff, including things like air written proposals. So if you're, I don't know, the Olympic Committee, the Super Bowl committee, you're purchasing supplies and things, looking at those things and making sure that their modern slavery policy or their policies around human trafficking are not just AI written, but that are actually implemented, right? And that's a huge thing because people can say anything, but the proof is in the pudding of what they're doing, and making sure that we're questioning what we're seeing and not just taking it at face value, I think is very important here. But I mean, Jim, you probably got things to add to my AI rant because it's not just my rant, but go, so I'll hand off to you.
Well, last night I fed AI, said, I am a person working in human trafficking on a team that's doing a mission for Super Bowl. Um, and I just asked it, what modes of transportation and would you think that traffickers were using to bring in victims? And it told me, you know, rail, bus, airlines. And I said, well, based on what a trafficker might do, um, what flights would you think um, that they would be using today, tonight, while I'm here at the airport? And it thought for a minute and spit out a number of different flights this morning that said, look for these and here's why. And based on my previous years of experience and how we um, profile, I know it's a bad word sometimes, but how we profile different things in order to be able to find these, it was exactly right. So
Mhm.
it's, I can feed into it and then um, prompts based on my experience, ask it a question, and then it comes up with analysis that would have taken me quite a long time to do.
So
Yeah,
we know that
that
we're getting that information. Um, the reality, the reality. What are some of the realities that we can share um, just with the general population? All of you are very well versed in your professions, and some of you, your professions are cross professions. Like, I know how to turn the computer on, and there's some basic stuff that I know how to do and understand some things. But what are some basic things that we can share with the mom, the dad, the aunt that may have the bare basics or no basics or is walking in fear of technology. And so that's causing them to have a hindrance of not being able to hold some conversations that need to be held with family members, especially our youth, and them having an understanding of the variations of what human trafficking looks like.
The biggest
I would start
realization
with
I
saying they
came
should.
to, oh, sorry, the biggest
Go ahead.
realization I came to on the ground is that uh, sex workers aren't all Julia Roberts and Pretty Woman, and they aren't the pimps and hoes from back in the 70s. They look like the the girl next door. They look like your buddy's daughter. They look like somebody you're friends with because sometimes they are. They're pulled from Middle America. They're not just brought in from the South or overseas. They're pulled from girls who are um, at risk, looking for something. Some of them for an opportunity, modeling or cheerleading. Last year, we had a girl that was told that she could be a cheerleader during the Super Bowl, and she came in and ended up being trafficked for the week, and then left behind after Super Bowl was over. But there's it, it's right now you don't see it because you don't know what to look for, but once you know what to look for, you can't unsee it and you see it everywhere because it is everywhere. It's in every backyard. It's in every city, and it's it's just a growing problem. But yeah, it's just people walk through life unaware that it's happening right next to them. It's kind of like people who hate guns don't realize that in the supermarket they may be standing right next to somebody who's concealed carrying. They could also be standing right next to a survivor or a victim that was just sent to get supplies or is just trying to get a candy bar so they have something to eat that day.
Yeah.
I was going to say just, and in the same way, like technology, and Terry, you mentioned like, being scared of what's out there, right? And online and, your family, your children getting exposed to that or getting involved, through technology. And I think, it's the same way, having that awareness of what's out there. Like you can't run away from it. It's not going to go away. You just need to know that it exists, what it looks like, so that you can help your family to understand the same, right? And be able to deal with that situation when it comes. You know, there's all of the sextortion and everything that we deal with, and it's going to be very hard to avoid. You can't just shut the computer and tell your kid to never get online. You know, you have to be able to have those conversations to understand what's out there and what's possible, and then educate your family on that too, so that they understand what's going on and they can see the signs of, you know, someone trying to groom them, or whatever, right? Because it's very likely that they're going to come across that.
And we offer Human Trafficking 101. We offer technology and trafficking courses for parents. So, and we don't charge for these things. So you can attend them all for free and educate your families and your communities. And we're happy to host these in your local communities. If that's something that you'd like to see happen, then, please do reach out, because we do believe it's important. We have a sextortion hotline. We have a human trafficking hotline. People can call and get help if these things are happening in your family. Call us, right? We're here to help and we want to help. And unfortunately, sextortion is growing at, in the US, 1,700% year over year. 1,700%, guys, year over year. When we opened our sextortion hotline 2 years ago, we had like 24 calls. This past year, we had 719 in my own Barrington community, where we are headquartered. 719 cases, guys. That's insane. And that's not even on a global or national perspective. That's just in, my few zip codes around the office. So it is necessary to have the conversations. And sadly, that is propelling the highest rate of suicide in children. So if we can get those things that are cyberbullying or sextorting people offline with the help of tech professionals who are volunteering their time to help do that, then we can help make an impact on those sorts of things. And it definitely gets worse around, major sporting events.
In 2 minutes, I want you to explain it in 2 minutes.
Pressure's
The
on.
reason I say that is that we know that we're doing this and folk are looking at it. Many people don't know what sextortion is. Can you explain it in 2 minutes?
Hopefully less than that. Sextortion is when somebody uses sexualized images of you to extort something from you, whether that's money or whether that is you to do something for them through coercion. And they could be real or fake images made by AI, but in essence, they are coercing you with the idea of releasing those images if you don't do what you're told, whatever that might be.
Thank you. One of the things that we had a conversation and we shared in a formal panel discussion that took place is we had a senator on the line, on the panel with us, and talking from a legal perspective, some of the things that we need to be rallying around to suggest and to tell our lawmakers that here are some things that need to definitely be on the books as it relates for protection of the survivor, not the trafficker. 2 minutes.
So Senator Hill is introducing some bills in presently around human trafficking, and there are other senators and Congress people also looking at legal issues. I highly recommend that in your locality, you take the time to understand what that is and how it affects you. We are not a political organization, so we believe that it's up to each person to take a look at the legislation that's being put out there and to look at it from their lens and then support or not support it, but to know what it is, guys. It's very important that you're out there understanding what people are advocating for and then making a decision as to whether you support it or not. On a local, regional, and national and international level, guys, because, a lot of the products that you buy in your stores are coming from countries and places where slaves are making them. And are you considering that when you purchase it, right? fast fashion needs to give up to
Continue.
sustainable fashion, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't going to say that, but okay, Kendra, you took my words. But it is important, right, that you put your money behind things that make sense and that are sustainable and that aren't, using humans as slaves. And I get that there's a lot of things. Look, I am a massive tea drinker, right? I love tea. I understand that there is no tea presently made in the world that human trafficking isn't a part of. I know this to be true. That said, I am in Sri Lanka and India working with partners on the ground in the tea plantations to provide education, to provide opportunities that many of you have sponsored for women in order to combat this. So I'm not going to stop drinking tea, but I am going to try to make a difference in tea so that it's a better place and things get better, because it's broken and we're not going to have perfection. And I'm not saying that ethical consumerism has arrived in the world everywhere. It hasn't. But as long as you are aware, right, of what you're doing and trying to work with it, and buying tea from the most ethical places that you can buy it from and that kind of thing, then it makes sense, right? And so think about what you're buying, understand where it's coming from. And I think that's one of the easiest things that people can do to combat human trafficking, right?
Yeah. We know that traffickers sit down and they work a strategy. All the traffickers that will be at the Super Bowl or sending people on their behalf to the Super Bowl, because we know that human trafficking is a well-oiled machine from a corporate level all the way down to a self-employed level. And that's safe to say. What would be three takeaways each one of you would share with somebody, and do it in 1 minute?
So takeaways, the biggest one, and I press on it and I say it all the time, but it's just awareness, right? It's there. It exists. It exists in our world. It's in front of your face when you go to the store, when you walk down the street, when you go to the airport, it's there. And I think you just you need to know the signs of it. That's I think about, how do you end trafficking? Like, what's the magic pill to make it go away? And there's not. And I think the way to eradicate it is through awareness, because you can't take a stance, you can't do anything unless you know it's there, and you don't, so how can anyone do anything? So I don't know, that's my major takeaway. So I'll just
Oh,
combine all three into that one I just talked about
awareness, all in one. Yes, Jim.
Oh goodness. I'm I'm not sure.
I'll go first.
Okay, go ahead.
a lot.
So my three would be say yes, right? So anyone who has opportunity to give of their time, of their resources, um, say yes. Secondly, ask the right questions. I think if you even go back to how to use technology and how to have conversations, it's not about telling people things. It's not about telling technology to work. It's asking the right questions, because curiosity and asking the right questions is going to bring you to a place of knowledge. It's going to bring you to a place of truth and of facts. And with the right questions, that's where you start to be trained, to be equipped to make a difference. And then thirdly is have conversations, because trafficking exists, but it's not going to exist in our world unless we're talking about it. Change does not start until conversations start happening. It should happen first with your friends, with your family, and then move to different levels from there. So say yes, ask the right questions, and have conversations.
Okay, so takeaways from me is with something akin to the say yes is I've led the last two Super Bowls on the ground, and no matter how big the team was, we need more help. There's more girls than we can help, and um, I go through the week thinking I really want to do these other things, but I just can't get to them because we don't have enough people. So we need more people. We need more people on the ground. And if you can't be on the ground, then, donate your time, money, or whatever remotely, on the phones, helping do analysis, helping to help us raise money, even if you can't donate money yourself, maybe you can help us raise money. But um, that and I think the biggest takeaway for me is there's I just have to focus on the wins that we get, because it's the ones, like I said earlier, the ones that I couldn't help, that I remember most. But I need to focus on the wins so I can smile at the end and celebrate our success.
Before we hear from Sam, because we're going to have her to close it out, we're saying be aware, be educated, say yes, have a conversation, give of your time, your talent, and your resources. Russell Brunson said something. When someone asks you to do something, say yes, and then learn how to do it. Human trafficking is something that all of us can learn. The Reverend Dr. Claudette Anderson Copeland says, it's not about you, but it cannot happen without you. Rahab's Daughters is here on the ground to do whatever is necessary at Super Bowl. But then when Super Bowl is over with, the survivors still need to be loved. They still need wraparound services. They still need to know that they can do all things with the help of each and every one of us. We know that someone helped us as we went along our life journey. Now it is our time to take and give back to someone who needs not a handout, but a hand up. We're going to turn it over to Sam. We thank God for Sam for saying yes to the vision that God gave her, and that she was able to bring all of us together. And together we can do more. I turn it over to you, Sam.
Thanks, Terry. I think so when I left human trafficking the final time, so I was trafficked 4 times in different countries and in different circumstances, but I was in pretty bad shape, guys. Like, I had been beaten so badly that my cheekbones were shattered. I had broken ribs and fingers and all sorts of things. And my church and the families in my church who didn't know anything about human trafficking literally hid me, right? They kept me in their homes. They took care of me. They got me the medical care I needed. They got me the psychological and psychiatric care that I needed. They loved me in a way that I will never forget, which is part of what we hope to do for people, right? You don't have to have specialized training to love someone. You don't have to have specialized training to smile at someone, hold their hand, give them a word of encouragement. It doesn't require that, guys, right? And I will never forget those families who took me in and for an entire year passed me to different families at different times, but took care of me, right? And that my church family loved me enough to do that. And that, to me, is the takeaway. You all have love to give. How can you give it to change a life right now? Because you can change a life. I wouldn't be able to stand here and have this conversation with you if people hadn't loved me enough to change my life, right? So for me, that is the takeaway.
Amen.
Yes, I need to come up with you. This has been exciting. It has been informative, but we hope that there was something that was said that has jump-started you to want to do something. If nothing more, as he said, ask the right questions. And to ask the right questions, awareness has to take place, education has to take place. And then after you ask the right question, what is it that you're willing to do? Everybody can do something. We know here at Rahab's Daughters, you can reach out to us at info@Rahab's Daughters. That's RAHABS Daughters, which is one word, .org. Or you can call 877-726-2016 or go to our website, www.rahabsdaughters.org. We are in this together. Martin Luther King said, when one is in trouble, we're all in trouble. But the beauty is that we can take something that is nothing and make it something. We can turn ashes into beauty. We thank God for you, Jim, Ken, Kendra, and Sam for being on the ground. We are in prayer for Jim and Ken and all the volunteers. Please let them know that we have people that are praying for them while you are out on the ground. And those that are celebrating the Super Bowl, because at my church, it's really interesting to see who likes who. In that, celebrate the sports, but have a conversation and look at the sports in a different eye lens, because there's somebody that will be giving you a box of popcorn. There's somebody that will be cleaning the restrooms, that is doing it because they have to, not because they want to, not because it's a need, um, to just take care of the family. We know that we can do all things through Christ, which strengthens us. So as we leave here, we're not leaving you. Reach out to us because we're all in this together. Go in peace and go with God. Have a grand and glorious day. Blessings.